Porsche is the greatest car manufacturer to touch motorsport history. So why were they missing from racing games for 17 years? The year is 1994, and the emergence of modern racing games has inspired a little-known developer known as EA to create their own racing game, Need for Speed. Need for Speed brought racing to the digital world, displaying some of the best and fastest cars and establishing itself as a market leader in the genre, with manufacturers eager to have their cars represented in Need for Speed. One of these manufacturers was of course Porsche. EA struck a deal with Porsche for the exclusive rights to all Porsche cars to be used in their games, in anticipation for the release of Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. This exclusive right is called licensing and was held from 1999 to 2016, a total of 17 years by EA, drastically impacting the undertones of racing games forever. Have you ever wondered why your favourite racing game lacks certain iconic cars or tracks? It's not just a design choice, but the secret world of licensing in racing games.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Licensing is a legal agreement where the intellectual property owner grants permission to another party to use their IP under specified conditions, with its main purpose being to allow rights holders to control how their works are used while being able to generate revenue without losing ownership. It is this secret legal concept that creates problems for racing games. This video will explore the issue by examining case studies on car manufacturers such as Porsche, Ferrari, and Toyota. The impact of Porsche's 17-year licensing agreement is that Need for Speed was able to use Porsche's cars exclusively from competitors, which helped them differentiate from games like Forza and Gran Turismo, attracting fans who are eager to race and use such a prestigious car in Need for Speed. For Porsche, they were able to benefit from the marketing of their cars on one of the industry's best racing games, attracting a new customer base of younger fans. So why was this deal such a huge mistake? To answer this, we need to look at a hidden gem known as Ruf. Ruf is a German car manufacturer that used Porsche's chassis with their own interior customization that allowed the vehicles to be legally recognized as Ruf models. One of their most iconic creation is the CUF CTR, codename Yellowbird. The Yellowbird achieved a top speed of 211 miles per hour, surpassing contemporaries like the Porsche 959, establishing itself as one of the fastest cars of its era. So why am I telling you this? Well, to get around the licensing deal and fill the Porsche's void, games such as Forza and Gran Turismo had to use some creativity by relying on Ruf. This workaround was used for years and allowed competitors the ability to have a similar looking car to the Porsche in their game without breaching licensing agreements. So Porsche was now being limited to Need for Speed, whilst a very similar competitor was reaping its branding on other games. Although Forza and Gran Turismo would have loved to have Porsche in their games, they had to settle for Ruf. As such, Porsche, game developers, and gamers all suffered by having to compromise with EA holding this exclusivity created by licensing. This licensing deal being a mistake was further highlighted in Forza's deal with EA.
Hello, I'm Bill Gates, chairman of Microsoft.
Forza is owned by Microsoft, and what Microsoft wants, Microsoft gets. Therefore, for a huge undisclosed fee, Microsoft paid EA to sub-license Porsche's cars for Forza Motorsport 4 to be used as DLC. A sublease is when the owner of a lease is allowed to sell their lease again to another to be used. Usually a sublease is removed as an option during contract negotiations, so it's very confusing as to why a huge brand like Porsche would even allow this or miss it. Nevertheless, the deal emphasised the value Porsche's cars had in racing games and the limits developers were willing to break to ensure the cars were in their game. Porsche also soon came to the realisation that their cars were wanted in other games, and as such, limited exclusivity was coming at a cost to the brand. Porsche's manager of branded entertainment, Sebastian Hornung, confirmed that their license with EA had to end because they realised the current situation was no longer desirable. And this was the right conclusion to come to. Porsche missing out on the 70 years worth of exposure definitely set the brand back in the digital space, having missed an appearance in over countless racing titles and skipped a generation of young fans. Today the exclusive licensing has come to an end. Porsche is once again heavily represented in all racing games, appearing on covers of the biggest titles, a position truly earned from the German manufacturer. But this case study demonstrates how the exclusivity of licensing creates difficult blocks for cars being represented in all racing games. Although Porsche learned its lesson as such restricted exclusivity could bring harm to its brand, Toyota does something different. Toyotas are considered as the most versatile brands in the car industry, with cheap reliable cars to supercars. So why does Toyota refuse to license their cars? In the early 2000s, the Japanese powerhouse Toyota was present in practically any released racing game. But today, Toyota's brand is absent in major titles. Toyota has refused to license their cars, with racing games such as Need for Speed being refused even a single car, making Toyota's absence from Need for Speed over the last 4 titles ever so puzzling. You see, licensing agreements happen behind closed doors, and the lack of an agreement doesn't become public information. Think of it this way: the exclusive agreement of a license does not need to exist, and therefore, when there is no agreement, there is no news to be shared. It's as if it never happened, so we know there is no agreement, but we never know why. As such, with no concrete facts, theories and speculation develop out of such a mystery. The biggest theory as to why comes from Toyota's Twitter. Infamously, Toyota's UK Twitter account, in response to a fan asking for Toyota Need for Speed, "Not there, you can find our cars in GT Sport," which doesn't promote illegal street racing. This was a dramatic tweet which shocked the racing game industry. Toyota was claiming that they did not want their cars to be represented in street racing, a big part of Need for Speed's identity and other racing games alike. Although an interesting take from Toyota, this response makes sense from the Japanese brand. Japan has always had an issue with street racing due to the underground street racing culture present in the country, so it makes sense why a Japanese manufacturer doesn't want to push an acceptance towards this local issue. It did however bring this funny reply from Need for Speed. However, Toyota soon clawed back on their tweet and explained that this was a rogue employee. Although this is a plausible explanation, Toyota's yet to be seen in Need for Speed since. Although Toyota has made a return into Gran Turismo and Forza, but all this does is build upon the street race narrative. Whether you believe this speculation or not, this next theory you cannot miss. My theory is that Toyota is trying to create brand exclusivity. Within this licensing hiatus, Toyota has artificially built exclusivity for their brand, counteracting their commonplace image. Toyotas are known for their extreme reliability. A caveat of being reliable is that your car gets old and used, and that image sticks with the brand. So maybe Toyota wants to separate from this. This tactic is already evident with a few other luxury brands. For example, Rolls-Royce vehicles are a rarity in racing games. The brand has only appeared a handful of times, although again, there is no explanation as to why they haven't appeared. They may believe their cars are not for racing but for comfort, and too prestigious to be driven and seen within these games.
For nearly 100 years, Rolls-Royce has been synonymous with the ultimate in luxury cars.
Brand image is vital for this luxury brand. Therefore, Toyota may be wanting to follow a similar suit and develop this exclusivity to create anticipation for their cars. We've seen this with Toyota entries in Gran Turismo being advertised as if they were Lamborghinis. Maybe Toyota are making the Mitsubishi route. Mitsubishi currently face an identity crisis, and in which restricted access to the licenses actually makes sense. Mitsubishi's old car models no longer represent their new ones. The brand today is much worse than their old, which car enthusiasts actually love. So what is the point of Mitsubishi licensing their old models if it doesn't reflect the cars today that nobody wants? Mitsubishi's best car is the Evo Lancer, a poster car for rally. However, a new Evo has not come out in over a decade, with the last model coming in 2015. Whatever the reason is, Toyota have the right as an IP owner to license or not the cars whichever way they like. This of course is problematic for developers and fans wanting to gain access to the wanted cars. Let's hope licenses are not restricted to this level in the near future with Toyota or even other brands. But as we will see next, even when some licenses are granted, they can come with very restrictive conditions. Ferrari. Purely crafted machinery that embodies elegance is heavily protected by the Ferrari brand. Have you ever realized that you are not allowed to customize them in-game? You see, a stipulation for Ferrari appearing in-game is that you are very limited in the modifications that you can make to the Ferrari cars, with any modifications available always being Ferrari factory stock that they've created themselves. Such conditions of licenses are common when the licensor wants to dictate how their intellectual property is handled. In this case, Ferrari wants their cars represented in the image that they created, and racing game developers accept this trade-off. I mean, how could you say no to Ferrari? Although Ferrari's not alone in setting conditions. In fact, all car manufacturers have set the same conditions in all their licensing agreements. This condition is that there will be no damage to their cars that depicts extensive damage to their car models. This is why cars seemingly cannot get damaged in racing games. They may have marks and minor dents, but never accidents like we see in real life, which I must admit is strange considering you can find a photo of a damaged car online with one search. Yet, this is the current reality of racing games. I guess they must know what will happen at turn 1 of every online race.
He's lost it!
So far we have spoken about how licensing affects the playable cars in racing games. But licensing challenges aren't just limited to cars. Nürburgring is a famous legendary track with over 170 turns, high-speed straights, and disruptive elevation changes. But it is its policy on public use that truly makes it unique. Arguably one of the best tracks in the world allows the public to drive in it with any roadworthy car, allowing people to test their daily drivers on it, making the track infamously popular with car enthusiasts. Such popularity and being privately owned has meant that the track's ownerships are able to negotiate separate terms at a higher price. These higher prices have caused tension between developers and track owners, often with the tracks being added later into the game cycle's life or missing the title altogether. Therefore, it is always a difficult position for developers to manage, as a game missing these key tracks can seriously harm gameplay and authenticity. Yet agreeing to ever-increasing licensing fees will set precedents for future contract negotiations. Licensing is what allows racing games the ability to use respected and loved brands within their games to give fans a simulated digital feel of their favourite cars. Although licensing can create issues of exclusivity, restrictions, and costs, these events are limited to a handful of scenarios. Usually both parties reach an agreement and the consumer is satisfied. Therefore, licensing will continue to underpin all racing games in the shadows to deliver your true racing experience. If you found this video insightful, hit that like button, subscribe for more legal and gaming deep dives, and share your thoughts below. What car or track do you wish was in your favourite racing game?